All right. So today we are going to start working on our Game of Thrones animation. What a perfect time when the series is all over. And we have to wait 11 months to see it again. It's
Isn't that
ridiculous.
supposed to be the last season too?
Never. It's never going to end.
It's gonna end. He only has 2 books left.
Yeah, he only has
He
two
never
books left.
finishes
He
it.
never finishes them. That's right. So what we need to do before we open up Maya, if you haven't opened up Maya already, or even if you have, remember last class we talked about our preference file that we have? You weren't here. Where were you? We have our 2018 folder on there. You can just set yours up later, so don't worry about it. You're going to copy your 2018 folder from your folder on the P drive or wherever you've stored it. And you're going to go to your P drive Maya folder. You're going to delete the 2018 folder that's already there. And you will put the other one in there. So you've just deleted the 2018 that was in the P drive, whatever, and you're putting in this other one. And then you can open up Maya. And then what we should find is that our preferences from before that we set up are all there. We should see our shelf with our name on it. All of our shelf items should be there, hopefully. And then while you're waiting for Maya to open, I'll do this right here. I'm going to just put this. Oopsie. There we go. On the it's already there. On the Y drive, I think it is on your computers, there's one called Make a Inst. Okay, there's a 2540 folder. You need to copy the your name underscore mech animation, right click and copy that, and put that into your folder. So you will copy that. And on your P drive folder, you will paste it. Everything's up to good. Okay. So one thing that with Maya, remember last time we made a project folder because we wanted to stay organized with our stuff. Every single time we come into Maya, we have to tell it what project we're working on. Okay. So last time we worked on playing around, I think that's what we called it. Doesn't matter, but just for fun. Sarcona playing, that's what we called it. All right. So before I go into setting this project, I need to rename it. So I don't have however many of you there are in here turning in something called your name underscore mech animation. That doesn't make sense. So rename your folder that you just copied. Not the 2018 one, but the your name mech animation. Put your last name underscore mech animation. Yes, sir. Yeah. Remember on a Mac it overwrites. So a Mac would automatically do it. It would automatically delete the folder and put the new one there. On a PC it merges it. So you might end up with, on mine, there it is. I have a Sarcona shelf, but I also might have a gym shelf and some other stuff that whoever else put in there. Okay. All right. So now once we're inside Maya, we need to set our project. Okay. We need to tell Maya, hey, this is what we're going to be working on. So we go to File, Set Project. And we go find that project folder that we just put on there. So mine's on the P drive. Sarcona 2540. And all you should do, you click on the name of the project. So in my case, it's Sarcona underscore mech anim. You do not need to go into the folder. You should not be going into the folder. You stay right there outside the folder. You single click on it, and then you hit set. You have to close that window. That's why you can't see your stuff. Just that X. Yep. There you go. I don't know what happened there. I don't know why this happened either. Okay. So once we've done that, our project is set. Now Maya knows what to do. So every time you come in, you go to File, Set Project. You click on the project you're working on. So we're working on the mech animation today. So we click on just that. And then we hit Set. Okay. So that tells Maya where our scenes are. It tells Maya where to save the images we render out. And it tells Maya where our textures are coming from. Okay. So now we can hit Control O to open up our file. And we're going to open up the mech animation or the mechamation start. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, close that, close that. There's a million windows going to pop up. Just click OK and close and whatever else. All right. A couple errors that popped up. One of them was for Mental Ray. When I created this file, we originally were using Mental Ray. We're not using Mental Ray anymore. So we'll go over assigning materials and stuff inside of Arnold. Just ignore that for now, okay? Another one was because it's a student version. Another one was because it's an older version, okay? So everything should work. I tested it out. Everything should work. Doesn't mean it will work today, but it should work today. Cool. So what we see here, this is a model that I built. I spent 3 days building this model. It's a joke. This is just simple geometry, and you'll see that there's a bunch of little circles around here. Now the idea with this is that each one of those circles will control one part of this model, okay? So just so you can see it, if I click on this circle here, you'll see that there's an attribute called stairs, okay? So in Maya we have the channel box. There's translates, rotates, scales, visibility, and then I created an attribute called stairs that will control, guess what? Stairs, right? Pretty obvious. Okay, so Maya has this thing called virtual sliders. So if you see my arrow over the 9 right now, over stairs, you see how it's like a weird symbol? It's like arrows and lines. That's a virtual slider, meaning I could click and drag on it, and it'll actually like change the value of it. I don't have to click on it and type in numbers, which is amazing. What's even more amazing, I never use that, okay? I click on the name, and then out here in the real world, I middle mouse button click and drag, and that's another virtual slider. So it just gives you a bigger area, especially on my laptop. I'm kind of claustrophobic to the edges, so I just click on stairs, middle mouse button click and drag, and then you can see as I go this way, the stairs are disappearing. Whoa. Okay. Now if I click on this other one, and then I go up here to walls up, you can guess what that is. Walls up. Okay. And so on and so forth. Here's rollout. I have to actually put the walls up away so you can see what the rollout is. I can grab multiple ones at the same time. Maybe. There we go. 4 to go into wireframe. 5 to get to shaded mode. Here's rollout. There we go. Alright. Now you see how long this takes me? This is like from going from 0 to 180, right? So when I click and drag, see how slow that is? Holy cow, it's taking forever. You can use shift, and shift makes things go a lot quicker. So if you hold shift while you're clicking and dragging, or middle clicking and dragging, it'll go a lot faster. Go to wireframe again. Here's the tower up and around. So there's the tower coming out. Here is that little thing. You see this little piece right there. And then this one. And then this one. Oops, that's the tower around. There it is. You can see it. And here's the cone out. Okay. So what we're going to be doing is animating these. This model has already been rigged. Okay. So basically what I did is I modeled all the stuff as I wanted it. And then I created all these circles. And then I added controls to each circle to control a specific item. Okay. So as you animate stuff, it should be pretty simple to see what needs to be animated or what each thing does. I'm going to I'm just going to reopen this so I'm back to where I started. There we go. Yes. Okay. Now I've even gone. Okay. I've even gone a step further. If I go to my outliner, remember we added the outliner button in the shelf. If I click on there, do you see how there's control 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? Okay. Guess what order they go in? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. You can overlap them, so they don't have to be like 1 happens, and then 2 happens, and then 3 happens. You can have some overlap between each one of them. So what we want to do is go to each one of these controls and basically turn everything off. So I'm going to go to 1, 2, 3. So you see how I'm just going to each one of these and turning everything off. Anything that is below visibility, I'm just going to take and 0 out. Yep, the whole thing. You could type it in too. Okay. Everything to 0. Alright. So now what we're going to do is animate the stuff. Now, does anyone know how long each one of these things should animate for? You missed one. We don't know, right? Just like our other stuff that we animate, you set a start point, you set an end point, you hit the play button, you see what happens. Too slow, we move the keyframes closer. Too fast, we spread the keyframes apart. Okay? So my recommendation is we have 234 frames here. That's a pretty good time of rendering things out. You definitely don't want to go above 234 frames, okay? The whole intro to Game of Thrones is what? 30 seconds? Not even a minute, right? They do all of those castles in that time. We don't want to go crazy with this. Okay, so what I recommend we do, we have basically 9 controls. If we set keyframes every 20 frames, how many frames would that be? 20 frames each one, 9 items. 180, yes, perfect. Okay, so 180 gives us still room to expand it a little bit if we need to. Some of these may work better faster, some of these may work better slower. We will have overlap. It's a good starting point, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to go to control number 1. Make sure we're wound to the beginning. Right now, my time slider anyway is at 223. Okay, so I'm going to rewind it by clicking the rewind button. And then I'm going to set keyframes. Now remember last time I talked about we don't want to hit the S key because that's a horrible way to set keyframes? Yes, okay. So we are going to hit the S key, but we're going to do something else first, okay? The thing we're going to do is we're going to set an option that allows us to just keyframe what we have selected. So I've selected those 2. So when I hit S, I want to set keyframes just on those 2 items. Okay? So I'm on frame 1. I have these 2 items selected. I'm going to hold down the space bar in the middle of my screen. And then under key, which is on this bottom leftish area here, I'm going to click and hold. Okay, right there. And I'm going to go to set key, and I'm going to go to the option box. Okay, so the little box on the far right of it, I'm going to go to that option box for set key. Okay, I'll do that again so you can see it. I grabbed control number 1. I'm on frame 1. I grabbed both of these attributes. I held the space bar. I held key. And I go to set key, option box, and then I let go. Okay. Every tool in Maya that has an option box, you should go into the option box so that you can see it. John, hit undo a couple times until your keys go away. Do you see how it's red? Especially for, look how long it took us to get to the actual set key button. That's like a huge amount of clicks that we had to do. We don't want to have to do that all the time. We want to set the options so that we can just hit S and have it automatically do what we want. So I'm going to say, all keyable attributes. Okay, so right now it's just going to set anything that is keyable. And then I'm going to say from channel box. Okay, so if I were you and I had my notepad out, I would write down set key option box, all keyable from channel box. If you don't save your preferences, this doesn't get set every time or saved every time. So you have to make sure that you have that ready to go. All keyable from Chanel box. All right, so what this should do, when we click S from now on, whatever we have selected in the channel box, that's the only thing that gets keyframes, okay? But we have to make sure we have something selected, otherwise it will still set keyframes on everything. So now we just hit set key. Okay. So, do you see anything that happened to those two attributes that we set keys on? Right, set key. So what happened to them when we set a key? Right, they turned red. Now notice what happens if I take my time slider off of frame 1. Do you see what color they change now? Right, pink, okay? So pay attention to that because it's important to know whether you're actually on the keyframe or not on the keyframe. If let's say I have 1,000 frames and I want to get to frame 995, but I'm at 996, I may not be able to actually see that I'm on 996, okay? But knowing this will help you make sure you're overwriting keyframes instead of adding new ones. All right, so now I'm going to go up to frame 20. Okay, so I just click at frame 20, right in the timeline. And then I just take these two numbers and make them big, and then I hit S again. Okay, so we were at 1, we set it to 0. We moved to 20, adjusted the time, and then we hit S, or adjusted the values. So make sure that you take these tower up and tower around, and you middle click and drag them, or you use a scroll up here and make sure they're both at 10. And then you set that key. Now, does your scene, if you spin your camera around a little bit, you notice anything different about my cylinder compared to your cylinder? Not really? Doesn't mine look better?
Yeah.
That's what yours looks like. That's what mine looks like.
Oh, yours has
See?
shadow.
Yeah, you can add this is inside the viewport. You can click this little ambient occlusion button, and then you'll be able to see the contact shadows. And what it does is it just makes everything a little bit easier to see, especially when you have gray on gray on gray. It hurts. All right. So our last keyframe was at 20, right? Yes. Perfect.
Yeah.
So then we're going to go to the Control 2. We're going to highlight those two values for Control 2 at frame 20. Then what do we do to set a key? S to set a key. Then we go up how many frames? 20 frames. We change the values and then hit S. Nope, change the values first and then hit S. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I know. Sorry.
It's still going. I'm not sure why it's taking like so incredibly long. But alright. So when you get to 4, 4 is a little bit different. I said when you're done with 2, do 3. I already did 3. I'm ahead of the game.
Yeah. She's always in there.
Yeah. When you do 4, there's 2 things that are being animated here. Tower up and around is one of them, so I'll animate that. So I'm just going to go to set my key here, go up 10 frames, set my key there, and then I will go to cone visibility, and I'm going to key this one on. Okay, this is like the little top of that area. It's just not there right now, okay, because it's just not there. It's invisible. So that's how I got it, is that the cone just pops in and out of visibility. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go back a couple frames, doesn't matter where, and I'm going to keyframe the cone visibility to 0, go up to 80, and pop it back on. That way I can take the cones out and have this pop up. Okay, and then the rest of them should be pretty straightforward. If they have two attributes, like here, there's two of these, then I would grab both of those at the same time and animate both of those at the same time, not individually. Okay, so I'm going to set this, set this one, go up to 120, set that one. Go to controller 6 and 7, set a key on that, go to 140, set a key. And you'll see how I'm just skipping along, just going to the next one and the next one and the next one. Alright, so this is where you should kind of end up at the end of this. If you don't end up matching mine perfectly, it doesn't matter. It's animation. We can move stuff around, right? Last time we played with that sphere, just moving back and forth, and we just changed keyframes. We moved keyframes around, we adjusted speeds of keyframes. That's the whole point of it, okay? Now you'll notice on a couple of these, they're pretty straightforward things. The building coming up, if I rewind this back to where the building comes up, you see it just basically just comes straight up, like that, okay? And it happens actually pretty quick. The same amount of time it takes for that entire building to come up is actually the same amount of time it takes for these little pieces to come up too, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? Because they're smaller, so those should actually happen a lot quicker, right? So we can fix that. Also, what would be kind of neat is as this is coming up like this, the second it hits the level with where that one's at, then that one is going to start coming, okay? So now I want to start to mentally start timing things. My first piece of animation is the building. I don't want to start messing with anything else until I get the timing of that building right. Not necessarily in this one, we really don't need to go in the graph editor too much, or even at all on this one. But the dope sheet, definitely, okay? So I'm going to look at the dope sheet. I'm going to click on Control 1. And I'm just going to see how long it takes that building to come up. And I'm just going to just look at it and see, do I like the way that looks? If you're not sure, if you're on the fence, yes it does, no it doesn't, whatever, make it extreme. Right now we're at 20 frames. Make it 10 frames, see what it looks like. Make it 30 frames, see what it looks like. Okay? So I'm just going to grab that second keyframe and just move it up. So now I'm at about 30. Alright. Now I'm at a little bit more than 30. Now you'll notice something as I do this. The slower it goes, does it feel a little bit bigger then? Right? Window Animation Editor Dope Sheet. Okay. So as I hit play on this, notice how slow it's going. I'm going to really stretch this out. I'm going to go to like 100. I'm actually cutting it off. Further. There we go. Okay. So because of the size of this piece, the slower it goes, the more realistic it feels because it feels massive. It feels like it's a big item. Smaller items, yeah, they should go pretty quick. Bigger items should go slower. So I don't think I'm going to go to 100. I think I'm going to go maybe to like 84 with this. Okay. Now don't try to follow mine exact right now. Pay attention to how my mind thought process of how I'm trying to figure out where to put stuff. And then you'll just apply it to yours. Okay. So once I have this one set up and I see how fast this is going, then I'm going to ignore everything else except for the next ring. Okay? And what should happen is as this building is coming up, that next ring is going to hit right at the same point. So if I look at where this ring is, right there, and I cheat and I kind of use my window as where the ring's going to be, because the second I start rewinding, my ring's going to disappear. Okay? So once this hits about there, that's when I want my ring to come in. So at 41. So now I'm going to click on my control I'm going to grab my ring and scoot it over. Again, I'm going to preview it and see what it looks like. I'm ignoring everything else except for that ring. Again, because it's a bigger item, I probably want it to take a little bit longer than 20 frames. So I'm going to grab that and scoot it down. If you get the gist of what we're doing here so far, you'll see that there's going to be a lot of overlap. We didn't have any overlap a second ago. We went 1 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, 60 and so on. Now we're going to have overlap between all these pieces. And if you watch the Game of Thrones stuff at the beginning of the show, you see that's what they have. There's a lot of stuff going on in each one of those. Okay, that's cool. So this is frame 82. This one is 41, so it's about 40 frames apart. So when I go to number 3, and we're at about here, I'm going to spread this apart further. And I'm going to grab this and just scoot it down. So now, boom, boom. And then when I go to number 4, this one has a couple things going on because it's the cone cap popping up and the other thing. So just like before, I'm going to take these kind of one at a time. So I'm going to go here to the cone cap and push that further down for a second. Here is the top cap. So I'm going to push that right there. And right there. Okay. And I messed something up. Yes, I did. I grabbed the wrong keyframe for something. Pop cone out. Oops. Yep. I'm just going to go to the graph editor for this and see what's going on. Oh, that's that one. Okay, so this one here I should have just kept back here. That's all I did. And then I'm just going to keep going along the line. I'm going to go to the next one, see where it is. This is these little pieces coming out, so I'm just going to wait until the building is that high. Right about there. And move that down. Go to the next one, see where it's appropriate for it to come out. Okay, for this one, probably right about 100. And I'll probably stretch this out further. Oops. I'll do the same thing to number 7. And you can have multiple items up in the graph, so you can actually tweak both of these at the same time. I'll go to number 8. I'm going to scoot it back just a hair more. And then finally number 9. Alright. Another thing that I turned on, for me, it helps sometimes, again, when you have that gray on gray on gray stuff. You're trying to see these animation, you're trying to see all this detail. There's this button right here called wireframe on shaded. And so what it does, it puts a wireframe on your shaded stuff. Okay, so that just makes it a bit easier for you to see what's going on in the scene. Okay, now you may have overheard me saying it, you may have figured it out. This is not something where we can get a full 360 view of. When these things come in, you can see how these big cylinders just kind of like pop into view. We won't show that. Okay, so our camera angle will be something like that, or like this, or something kind of moving in or whatever. Okay, so you just have to be aware of that thing. This top little piece too, this also pops in. You'll see it's like nothing, and then boop, there it is. Okay. Now, with all the animation or all the rigging that's done to this, the idea with all of it is to isolate what I want to do with an object and then figure out how to connect that. So last time I showed how I can use expressions or using the connection editor to connect attributes together like I did with the ball and scaling it. Same thing here on each of these items. Bloop. Here's all the items that are inside this thing. It's enormous. Well, let me not show it there because that's going to drive me crazy to have to show that. Cylinder. I'm going to click on this isolate. There we go. So we can see this. So this is how I made this. So this is just a cylinder. And there has an end sweep on this. And you can see how this end sweep just animates on. Okay. So basically I'm connecting this attribute to something else. Okay. So I'm connecting this attribute to that ring opener. Okay. The other thing I'm doing is changing the height. So I'm also kind of scaling this as it comes up. But I'm scaling it from, there we go, from the bottom. So it scales from the bottom. So that's not the bottom at all. Come on. There we go. So it scales and it's doing this sweep, and that's how we're getting that animation on those towers. Okay. Now there's other stuff that goes into this. This is a NURBS cylinder. Okay, in Maya there are NURBS and polygon surfaces. NURBS are more like the pen tool, like vectory kind of things, and polygons are just like you're drawing exactly what you want to see. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's what it is. So I can't actually extrude a NURB surface and give it thickness. So I've converted my NURBS into polygons, and then I extruded it, and then I did the whole thing to it. With history inside Maya, it allows this whole function to work. So not an easy thing to set up, but definitely cool when you look at this kind of thing. So when you look at something like Game of Thrones, that's what they're doing. They're isolating all these little individual elements and trying to animate all the stuff together like that. Okay? And to their point, they're actually doing a lot more stuff because they have, obviously, entire cities that they're doing and gears and all this stuff that has to make sure that it works. It's a neat thing if you ever walk through and do like a frame by frame of that opening sequence. Okay. So, oops. You also notice there's no stairs on this side, so obviously that side is the optimal front side. Cool. All right. I'm going to close this. I don't need that anymore. Let's get into rendering. So on these computers, we have Arnold on them right now. Arnold is meant for 2D or for still images inside Maya. We will not get a watermark. So I'm going to show today how to do it in Arnold. You'll get a watermark. It's right there inside the software. I don't care about the watermark. You may want to render this out fancier later. I will also show how to take this into KeyShot, not today, but next class, so you can see how we can render it without a watermark. It's a longer process. It'll look better. You won't have watermarks, whatever. Arnold is great for stills, though, so if you needed a cool still, you could do it. So a lot of the stuff is going to be under the Arnold menu. Okay, if you don't see it, you go to Settings, Preferences, Plugin Manager, and somewhere inside here, there it is, Maya to Arnold, M2A, that's what that means. Okay, and I will go to, just so you can see it, I'll hit Render, just so you can see the default, what we get. Gorgeous. Okay, nothing in there. We don't have lights, we don't have materials, nothing. So I need to go to my lights and add a light. So for something like this, I would probably use a sky dome light. Okay, this should give me a sphere that surrounds my object. All of its light. Okay, so it should give me a nice little like flat-ish rendering when we see this. So now it's going. You'll see that the screen is gray. It's spinning around. Now it's blue. Boom, there it is. Awesome. Okay, that's pretty sweet. I can adjust my property. So I hit Control A to get the attribute editor. I can adjust my intensity. This looks like it's grayed out. It's not. You can still type stuff. I can change the color. So if I don't like white, I can make this, more of a yellowy color or red color. Come on, there we go. We could also use color temperature. So you may not be aware of what color temperature is. Kelvin. You may have heard the Kelvin scale color. Yes. Okay. So that's exactly what it is. So if we want to pick up a specific range, all we have to do is go to a Kelvin scale type thing, find that number, and then punch it in. And that'll be basically the color. So you can pick the color, or you can go to a Kelvin range, whatever you want to do with that. Okay. So you just click it, and you can type it in. Let's say 1850. See how orange it is? Ignore this one. We're going with that one, 1850. Okay. Or 7,000. How did what? Under Arnold lights, I created a dome light. Okay. Arnold lights, sky dome light. Okay. Again, you can change the intensity. You need something a little bit more intense. That's perfect to do it. For materials, I click on, let's say, the ground. I go to lighting and shading. So I'm in the hot box, so hold the space bar. Lighting and shading, assign new material. Now, there are Maya shaders right here. We are not going to use any Maya shaders because we're using Arnold. We'll use Arnold shaders. And we really only need, in this case, using one, which is the AI standard surface. There it is. AI standard surface. Okay. And what this does is it gives us some properties. So I can add a color. So I'll add, let's say, green. This horrible, ugly green right here. It's fine, good. That's good. Let me shrink these. Yes, sir. You just, for assigning materials, you just hold the space bar and go to lighting and shading, assign new material. Okay. Yes, you can also get to it by using the right mouse. Okay, so there's also assign new materials here, assign favorites when we start assigning favorites, and assign existing if they already exist. Okay. It does not, no. Right. Yeah, assign lighting and shading, it's ridiculous. That's Maya. They just we're not going to update anything. The same names as we had 20 years ago. So their AI standard surface that we're using, this is a material that you could use for plastics, glasses, woods, anything, okay? It's just a matter of turning stuff off and turning stuff on. So right now, if I were to render this, because I have my specular on, it's going to look probably glassy. So I probably want to pull that specular weight off so I don't have it look glassy. It does look like that. There we go. Okay, so now I have grass. Then I would do the same thing for my building. Don't give everything the same color. Even if you think oh, it's all brick, it's all brown. That's ugly, number one. And number two, you want to show off all of these different things. So certain elements, yes, they're going to be a very similar color. Other elements are going to be different colors. Play with that to make sure that your animation is best being shown off. You can lose detail in these areas here especially if you don't have good color choices, okay? Just to give an example of that, let's say I'm assigning material to these guys. I don't want to go through and click each one of those. That would be like forever. So I click on one and hit the up arrow and see how it selects all of them. And then I can go to my assign new material, go to Arnold, go to AI standard surface. There it is. Take my, I'm going to give this a little bit of specular, make it a little bit rough. And then for my color, I'm just going to go with this kind of grayish color here. These three rings, I'm going to assign a material to them. And go with like a darkish brown. I think that one I'll give a different color too. It doesn't hurt to assign stuff to things and then adjust afterwards. Alright, so I have a few materials on there. Let's just see what this is going to look like. Alright, so a couple things, notes. You can't really see it too good. I'm going to pull this up in a second once it's done. You can see it better now. Okay. So without any roughness on my specular, this is like reflective. This is reflective here. I don't want that. Any kind of reflection that I have in my castle doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So I want to grab this, Control A. That gets me to my attribute editor, find that AI standard surface, and take the roughness up. You don't have to do it for every surface, you just have to do it for every material. Okay, so what that means is I don't have to grab each stair. Each stair has the same material on it. There we go, that's much better. Okay, now the green of my landscape, the projector is darkening everything. I'm just going to hit escape to stop that and pull this up some. Alright, so you can kind of see it better. The green of my landscape may be a little bit too dark for that tower, and I'm kind of losing the tower some. This isn't going to be my final camera angle, but I may want to either lighten the tower some, maybe lighten my grass, maybe play with the values there just to make sure they're not doing that. So there's a little bit more contrast between them. Okay. I could also go into Arnold and I can add another light. So if I decided that I wanted to keep a specific light to make sure that I had maybe some shadowing happening. So I'm just going to make this light huge. And what we're going to see is our shadows are now going to be a little bit more apparent. With this dome, you're kind of like washing out your shadows. You get some sort of ambient occlusion or contact shadows, but you don't really get actual shadows. With an actual light in the scene, you're going to get actual shadows. And you can see really close inside here, these dark spots, that's all shadow. If I look under the steps, those are all shadows, okay? So it's a neat way to be able to get that much detail or that much pop to them, I guess. So they stand out a bit more, okay? You probably should save your stuff too. Alright, so that's where I'm going to stop it for today. Make sure you understand how to set keys. Make sure you understand how to manipulate them in the dope sheet. Time your things out. Make sure you understand how to set some basic materials inside Arnold. And obviously some lights too. Alright, and that should be good.